Okay, we have a couple of people coming in. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about demonic oppression and demonic possession. They are two totally different things. I am Priestess Autumn Phoenix, priestess of Coven of the Phoenix, based here in New York City. I've been a practicing witch now for 11 years. I have a coven. I've traveled. I've helped people who have been demonically possessed and oppressed. I've helped people who are haunted by ghosts, haunted by poltergeists, all things supernatural. Tonight's broadcast is not for the faint of heart. It's not for people who scare easily. It's not for people who are in league with demons, people who have demons doing their bidding. This broadcast is not for you. This broadcast is not for immature people. This broadcast is not for people who are seeking out information on how to send a demon to somebody to destroy them. This is not the broadcast for you if that's what you're here for. This broadcast is for you if you are demonically oppressed, if you are yourself, if you know somebody who is demonically possessed. This broadcast is for you if you want to get rid of it. This broadcast is for you if you want to save your own life. I have been granted permission by the God and the Goddess to do this broadcast. I am 100% safe while I'm doing this broadcast. I don't expect any type of activity to be interfered on this broadcast. I don't expect to be scratched, bitten. I don't expect to have puncture wounds. I don't expect to see things being thrown around my house. None of that. So I guess I should tell you my own experience that I've had with demonic oppression. I've never been demonically possessed. That has never happened. The time that I was oppressed was I went to go see a movie called The Conjuring 2, like the sequel to it. And the whole time I was trying to even get to the theater, I was having a really hard time. The train was running unusually late. The person behind the window that gives out the ticket, she was like she didn't want to give me the ticket because she did not believe that I was over the age of 21. Look, I know I look young, but I'm not in high school anymore. Okay, I haven't been in high school for a long time. Okay, I don't look that damn young. So I'm like, why is she asking me how old I am and asking to see my ID? So that kind of pissed me off. I went to the theater, and it was so cold in that theater. For summertime, the air conditioning must have been put on high blast because it was freezing in there. It was so cold. I felt that cold in my bones, and I just kept feeling like I should not be there. The movie was horrifying. It was absolutely the most scariest movie that I have ever seen. And when I left the theater, when the movie was over, I felt sick. I felt physically sick. I felt like my head was caught up in a cloud. I felt so foggy. I felt so sick. When I got home, I had taken some Tylenol and I took a nap. I woke up and I still felt the same way. I felt bad. I knew that it was something spiritually wrong with me, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But I know it had something to do with that movie. So I go in my bedroom to get ready to go to sleep for the night, and I turn off my light and I see this black shadow. I see this black shadow in the corner. It has no particular shape, but I ignore it. I don't give it any of my attention, and I don't speak to it. I go to sleep and I have this terrifying nightmare, but I knew it was not a nightmare. This was demonic oppression. I go to sleep at night and I have the covers over my head, and I see this claw, a literal claw, come over the sheet. It was green. It was rotten away. It didn't give up a smell to it, but I saw this claw, and this claw slammed itself on my face and started to push my face into the pillow, and I could not breathe. I could not scream. I could not move. I was struggling to stay alive. And all of a sudden, I felt this other presence in the room pull it off of me, and I was suddenly felt this overwhelming feeling of love. And when I woke up, fully in the next day, the next morning, then I felt much, much better. I will never, ever again watch that movie for as long as I live. That movie almost killed me. That demon was trying to suffocate me. I could not get away. That was the most terrifying event of my entire life. I will never watch that movie again. I will never watch anything that's telling me don't go to that theater and see that movie. I should have listened to my intuition. That's why I tell you all, it is so important that you listen to your intuition. Don't doubt it. If you feel that something is wrong, it's probably wrong. No, better yet, it is wrong. If you feel like something is wrong, it is wrong. And I didn't listen that day, and I suffered the consequences. So tonight I'm going to tell you what the signs are for demonic oppression and demonic possession. The signs, some signs, I think I have like 8 written down here. One sign of demonic oppression is you have an unusual desire for solitude. You want to be by yourself. You have an unusual desire to be lonely. You don't want to be around people. This behavior almost always presents itself as passive, but yet the person has no will to change. They want to be alone. They want to be in isolation. Second sign of demonic oppression. The person being oppressed has a explosive temper. That temper is hot as hell. And they are extremely angry. And they're dangerous. Quite honestly, they should not be in a home. It's that anger and rage and that temper that makes them act out. Extreme behavioral changes. Now, not to confuse anybody with, a mental disorder of having multiple personalities. Sometimes when a person has multiple personality disorder, it's actually not a medical reason. It's actually because they are demonically oppressed. Someone who's demonically oppressed has multiple personalities, but that is only for the most serious of demonic oppression episode or cases. All cases of multiple personality may not be demonic, so do check with your doctors, do check with your therapist, do check with your psychiatrist to make sure that this is actually not a mental disorder. But in most cases of demonic oppression, demon activity is happening. Changes in a person's personality, extreme or mild or moderate, may be evidence of demonic activity within that person. Some persons may be happy one minute and then sad the next. Now you might think that that's bipolar. Yeah, it could be that the person is just bipolar. But you won't know that unless you actually go to a doctor and have your head literally examined by a CAT scan. There's a very fine line between demonic activity and mental illness. But there are subtle changes between the two. And that's what I'm telling you tonight. I'm telling you how to overcome it later on in this broadcast too. The fourth sign is the person that's being oppressed. They may be restless. They may not be able to sleep. Insomnia can be a sign of a physical issue or sometimes a spiritual problem. When you can't sleep night after night and there is no medical reason behind it, you are probably demonically oppressed. So do go get a sleep test done by your doctor to make sure that just to be able to rule everything out, rule everything medically out. If science can't tell you, if medicine can't tell you what your problem is, you have to go to the spiritual realm and look for answers there. The fifth sign that you might be demonically oppressed is you have persistent, listen to me, you have persistent and unresolved anguish that will not leave you after you have gone to therapy, going to counseling, going to see a doctor about it, and even being encouraged to get out of that or get over it. If you are constantly in anguish and the doctor and the psychiatrist can't figure out what's wrong with you, you're probably demonically oppressed. That's unfortunate, but it is the truth. The sixth sign that you are demonically oppressed, you have self-inflicted injuries or you have feelings of committing suicide. Suicide has been a very hot topic in America. You've noticed that a lot of celebrities have been taking their lives recently. Some of them are because they are mentally ill. Some of them are because they are demonically oppressed. Demons can cause people to injure themselves and encourage that person to take their own life. The seventh sign, you might have unexplained illnesses with no cause. Now, I'm not talking about having the common cold or having the flu or having smallpox, chickenpox, measles, mumps, polio. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having unexplained illnesses with no cause. So if you go to the doctor because you're sick and the doctor doesn't really know what's wrong with you, even though they're giving you blood tests, nothing comes up, you might be demonically oppressed. When medical testing produces no physical cause of your symptoms, then we have to start to look at spirits, or even, maybe your house is haunted. We should, look towards the spiritual world for answers. Sometimes illnesses are psychological and it can be cured with medicine. Sometimes these illnesses are spiritual. If you do have illnesses that is caused physically, it can be helped by doctors and by going to counseling. Other times, the battle, unfortunately, is with demons. The eighth sign of demonic oppression, speech difficulties. You have problems speaking. That's the eighth sign of demonic oppression. Difficulty speaking. I'm not talking about having a sore throat and not being able to speak clearly. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about having laryngitis. I'm not talking about maybe you had a stroke and that's why you can't speak anymore. Of course, you should go to the doctor to make sure that you indeed did not have a stroke, and that's the reason why you can't speak. Listen to me, you have to go to the doctor first before you go to the spiritual world to find out what's wrong with you. You know, you can't just right away go to see a priest or a priestess or an apostle or a prophet to, you know, diagnose you. They're not doctors. If you're having issues in your life, go see a doctor first before you just think that you're oppressed or possessed. They're your first source of information. But if none of that turns out with any answers, the problems that you might be having with speech, the speech difficulties you might be having, may be, like I said, it might be a physical reason, it might be an emotional reason, maybe you have a mental issue, and unfortunately, in some cases, the issue might be because you are demonically oppressed. Demons don't want you to be able to talk. They don't want you to be able to cry out for help. The ninth reason, and this might shock some of you because you know that me, myself, is strongly involved in the occult. But let me tell you something about the occult though. Okay, listen to me. One reason that you may be demonically oppressed is because of the occult. But let me explain it to you though before you start saying, oh, it's because you're a witch and that's why I'm having problems, or it's because you're a priestess and that's why you're having problems. I don't want you to think that because a pagan works with the occult that's the reason why they're having a problem. No. If you don't know, listen to this. If you don't know what you're doing when it does come to the occult, when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to tarot, when it comes to crystals, and you know, so on and so on, don't use them. If you don't know what you're doing when it comes to witchcraft, tarot cards, crystals, and so on, don't use them. Before you use those things, learn how to. The occult is nothing scary, but it can be scary if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing when working with the occult, you can open up a door that is very hard to shut closed again. And you might have to bring in a priest or a priestess, whatever faith you might be, to expel it from your home. Demons are not easy to get rid of. They're not. And I know a lot of people say that demons do not exist in Wicca, but that does not mean that a witch cannot be an exorcist if they know what they're doing. I know how to expel demons from a home and from a person because I've had training. I have the experience to do so. And I only take cases that are true demonic, that are true oppression. I do tell you, go to the doctor, give me some type of information so that I can determine if you need medical help or if you need spiritual help before I actually do a exorcism on you. The eighth reason, the eighth sign, I keep saying reason, the eighth sign that you might be demonically oppressed is you are hearing voices. You know, you're hearing shit. This could be a sign of any, now don't get me wrong, hearing voices can be a sign of any number of actual mental disorders, so do go to the doctor to get checked out for that. A person who scratches themselves or pulls their hair out may be trying to get something out of their bodies. They might feel something is in their body, something is in their head trying to come out, trying to kill them from within. So don't, think that somebody who's scratching themselves or pulling their hair out is just trying to get attention. They may very well be trying to get something out of their bodies. So do talk with a doctor if you are the type of person who is constantly scratching themselves or constantly pulling out your hair. Do talk with a doctor first before you go to the spiritual help. If that doesn't work, then you do have to go see somebody who is an expert in the spiritual world to help you, because there very well could be something spiritual, most likely a demon in you, trying to kill you from within, and you won't know it until your family members get an autopsy report and says cause of death is cardiac arrest, when in fact you have been killed by a demon. Now when it comes to, let me just go back a little bit. When it comes to demons in Wicca, I said this earlier, I know that it is known in Wicca that demons do not exist. Demons are a Christian problem. It is an imagination of Christians. But sometimes those witches who don't know what they're doing when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to spell work, I think of it as a backlash. I see it as you did something wrong and it's coming back to you. It's your own energy coming back to you. But in Wicca, it's not referred to as, as demons. It's usually referred as negative energy or negative spirits or negative energy that you have created yourself, and you did something wrong with that energy, or you used it in the wrong way, and now it's coming back to you. It's coming back to attack you. It's your own energy coming back to do harm because you did something wrong. And own up to it. If you did something wrong in witchcraft, okay, fine. Own up to it. In Wicca, you cannot put the blame on somebody else. You can't say, oh, the devil made me do it. No, don't do that. In Wicca, you have to take responsibility for your own actions and your inactions. In Wicca, you have to take responsibility for what you do and what you don't do. You are entirely responsible for yourself. There is nobody to blame in Wicca. There is no scapegoat. That demon that's usually referred to in Christianity is actually your own energy coming back to hurt you because you did something wrong. But now I'm just telling you the signs of what you did wrong. I'm going to eventually, later on in this broadcast, tell you how to overcome it according to Wicca, not according to Christianity. In Christianity, they call on Jesus and the Christian God, Jehovah. Not in Wicca. In Wicca, we call them the goddess, the different gods and goddesses that we work with. Sometimes we use herbs, crystals, incense, essential oils, candles to expel the demon from us or from our homes. Now, this is where we get into the meat of everything. Now, I'm going to tell you the signs of demonic possession. Possession, not oppression. The first sign of demonic possession is you can speak in a language. You can speak in a language that before you have never been able to speak. So if you speak English and all of a sudden you can speak Latin, that's a sign of demonic possession. The second sign, you have what is known as hidden knowledge. You know things of the future. You know of things yet to come. You know things that, truly speaking, you should not know. It's hidden knowledge. You are talking about events that have happened in the person's mind that's trying to expel the demon from you. The third sign, you have incredible strength. No matter what your age is, no matter if you're disabled, you have incredible strength. That strength is always demonstrated when the exorcist is trying to restrain you. It's always demonstrated when the exorcist is trying to hold you down, to expel the demon out of you. You know, you may be able to throw heavy things like tables, chairs, toaster ovens, things that are heavy, microwaves. You have incredible strength that regardless of whatever your age is, or if you happen to be disabled. If you're disabled and you're demonically possessed and you're in a wheelchair, you might be able to all of a sudden walk. That does not happen. If you're disabled, you tend to stay disabled. You don't just all of a sudden get up and be able to walk. So it does not make any difference what your age is, if you're mentally or physically disabled. If you can display incredible strength, you might be demonically possessed. Now, this is obvious with demonic possession. I spoke about it earlier in the broadcast. If you are growling, snarling, barking, howling, biting like an animal, like a wild animal, you are demonically possessed. It's not really in humans to be able to snarl like an animal, like a lion, like a bear, like a tiger. Human beings can't do that unless they are demonically possessed. So if a person is possessed and they are growling, snarling, barking, scratching, they are demonically possessed. The fifth sign of demonic possession, those people who are demonically possessed are not possessed all day, every day. They're not possessed 24 hours a day. They're not possessed 24 hours a day. It comes and goes. They go in and out with increased frequency as the possession gets stronger. Let me say it again. Those who are possessed are not that way all day. They are not possessed 24 hours a day. They are not. They go in and out with increased frequency as the possession gets stronger. Number 6. To be able to determine possession, the person must first rule out the possibility that the individual is faking, that they just want attention. They must rule out physical and mental disabilities. If the person is faking, they are a psychopath. They're just trying to get attention. If the person is physically or mentally ill, they need to be referred to a doctor. They don't need an exorcism. They need a doctor. An exorcist is not a doctor. Sometimes when exorcists do perform exorcisms, there is a doctor on hand in case things get out of hand. When I do a exorcism, I always have a doctor on hand. I'm always near the closest hospital if things get out of control. If I get bit, if I get punctured, if I get scratched, I I've been scratched, I've been bitten by possessed people. It hurts a lot. So I always have a medical team on hand when I do a exorcism, you know, just to keep everybody safe, especially the person that is possessed. This is one sign that you all probably are already aware of. Look inside the person's eyes. If that person's eyes is black or red or any other color besides the color that they were born with, they are demonically possessed. But the most obvious color, the most obvious eye color change that you might notice is if I have brown eyes and all of a sudden my eyes are black, I am demonically possessed. If my eyes are blue and all of a sudden my eyes are red, that's rare though. It's very rare that somebody who is demonically possessed will possess red eyes. It's so rare. Possession of a person is rare too, but it does happen though. It is a real phenomenon. But it's not very often that somebody who is demonically possessed will have red eyes, have their color that they were born with become red. It's so rare, but in some cases that is the case. Another sign of demonic possession is when it comes to sacred items like my pentacle, or if you're wearing a pentagram, or if you wear a crucifix. They don't like that. Demons don't like sacred items. They don't like that. It's offensive to them. They don't like it. And they might become even more angry because you're wearing it. It doesn't have to be worn around your neck. It can even be tattooed on you. I can have a tattoo of a pentacle on my shoulder blade, and I turn around and a demon sees it and it pisses it off even more than what it already is. So sacred items like a pentagram, a pentacle, a crucifix is offensive to demons. It makes them really angry. When you think about powerful symbols, you can't help but think about a pentacle, which is what I'm wearing because I'm a Wiccan, a pentagram, and a crucifix. Those are sacred items. They're holy. Demon possession can enter if you are, into the occult in the wrong way. I spoke about this earlier. If you are in the occult in the wrong way and you don't know what you're doing, you're more likely to be possessed. So before you do witchcraft, know what you're doing. Please study the craft before you do any type of spell work. If you don't know what you're doing, get yourself into a coven. Get yourself under the anointing of an authentic priest or priestess of the craft. Because there are a lot of fakes out there. And a lot of priestesses and priests that just want your money or just want to control you. So make sure that the priestess or priest of Wicca that you're under is authentic. You'll know. Trust me, you'll know. It might take some time, but you will know. Another way that demons can enter our lives is if you have traumatic experiences, like maybe you were a soldier of war, maybe you came back from Iraq or Afghanistan and you have trauma, you can't sleep at night. Those type of feelings will open up the demonic. It will open it up to attach yourself to you and try to kill you. Taking hard drugs. I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about the hard drugs like crack, cocaine, heroin. If you do any type of those drugs, you're most likely to be demonically possessed, because those are hard drugs. Those drugs can kill you in seconds. If you do crack, cocaine, heroin, those are hard drugs. If you abuse prescription drugs, you're most likely to be possessed by demons, because your mind is no longer your own. Those type of drugs alter your way of thinking and ultimately alter your life. Also, one way that demons enter our lives is if you have been cursed. Generational curses sometimes. If a witch has cursed you with a demon, sent a demon to you, you will be demonically possessed. Your house will be demonically possessed. You might start to see things being thrown around your house. You might start to see shadow people. You might start to see ghosts. You might start to encounter vampires that drink blood. Vampires that are, just focused on energy vampires. If you live in a house that is demonically possessed, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. Because that demon just wants your house and wants you. So you need the help of somebody who has experience with that. Because, oh shit. It's so hard to get rid of a demon. It's so hard. And it should never be taken as, it'll go away by itself. It's not going to go away by itself. You can't move from the house that's demonically possessed and not expect it to follow you. It will follow you. You have to deal with the problem where the problem started. The problem is not going to be solved by moving into a different house. If your house is demonically possessed, deal with the demon there. Because you have the right to be there. That demon does not. The symptoms of possession. Let me just tell you this real quick. Possession is a phenomenon which is horrifying to witness. It's absolutely horrifying. Hollywood could not script a true possession. It could not direct a true demonic possessed movie. They could not do it. Being a witness to it is absolutely terrifying. It is a experience that you will never forget. It's unforgettable. It will stay with you for the rest of your life. That experience, that's not something that you can erase from your mind. You can't go see some, you can't get hypnotized and made to forget it. Because it's already touched you. If the victim does not have the strength to fight against the invader, against the demon, they can lose consciousness, completely lose consciousness, and have no memory when the possession is over. That's usually what happens. When a demon is expelled from the person that was possessed by the demon usually has no memory of the possession. Because they weren't there. It was the demon that has attached itself to the person's soul and was acting out through that same person. If the victim does fight and struggle against the spirit, they hold on to their consciousness. They remain conscious. You can ask them what their name is, what's today's date, and they will be able to tell you. They can remain conscious throughout the entire possession if they are fighting or struggling against it. The main symptom of possession is behavioral changes. I talked about that a little before. The victim may become violent towards other people in the room that's part of the exorcism, and especially themselves, for no apparent reason. Sometimes, and it's not rare, it does happen. I'm not going to tell you that this is rare. Sometimes pain may happen to them. They might ball up, they might start snarling and growling and howling and barking and scratching and biting, trying to get away. Sometimes injuries might appear on their body. Like scratches might appear on their body, bites might appear on their body. Words might be cut into their skin, most likely on their chest. There's a lot of blood loss, so that's why I encourage you to have a medical team on hand if you are the one that is doing the exorcism, so that everybody stays safe. The person that's having a demon expelled out of them has to be restrained. You have to be tied up. That's the only way I can say it. I can just tell you just like that. The person that's having a demon expelled out of their body has to be tied up so they can't get away. That's the worst thing that can happen. If you're doing an exorcism, you don't want that person to be able to escape. You don't want to let that evil out into the streets. Okay? I don't care where you live at. You can live in Alaska. You can live in an igloo. You don't want that person to escape. Because now you'll have to deal with the repercussions of what that person does while they're on the street possessed by a demon. So the person has to be tied down. You have to be restrained. You can put straps on a person, just hold them down. Use belts to tie them up so they can't get away. Make sure the door is bolted shut. The door is locked so they can't get away. Make sure if you are in a room with windows, lock the windows. You'll be surprised. You'll be able to get out the window. Trust me. Okay? The injuries that appear on the person's body while they're possessed, don't worry about that right now. Treat the injuries after the person has been released from the demon. Don't rush to get a first aid kit to try to treat the injury, because the injuries are just going to come right back. That comes later. Your job as an exorcist is to expel the demon from the person's body. Now, if you happen to be a witch and you are called in to perform an exorcism, priests and priestesses of Wicca usually perform exorcisms because they have much more experience with them. For you to do an exorcism, regardless of what your faith is, you have to have had some experience with demons. If you have had no experience with demons, don't do an exorcism, because you don't know what you're doing. And you can make a bad situation much, much worse. If you do not have experience with demons, you can't do an exorcism. And you should never try. It is so dangerous. Because for the simple fact, you don't know what you're doing. You have to have had experience. See, I've had experience personally. I've been personally touched by a demon. So I've had the experience. I know what to expect. I know what to look out for. I know when somebody is faking. I know when somebody is just acting out just to get attention. I know the difference between mental and physical issues and spiritual issues. I have the experience, and that's what qualifies me to do exorcisms. When a witch does the exorcism, protection is key. This is a few keys when a witch does an exorcism. The deity or personal protection is established for all of those that are in attendance. Protection is key, because if you don't have protection, some shit is going to go down. Raising energy. This involves visualization and sound vibration and the invocation of deity. So whatever God or goddess that you are going to be working with, you know, you would invoke them, you would ask them to come into your magical circle to help you to expel the demon from the person's body. Communication. Now I know a lot of exorcists say when you are dealing with somebody who is demonically possessed, you don't really want to have a conversation with them, because that person who is demonically possessed is going to say a lot of shit that might offend you, that might piss you off, that might make you want to get violent with them. They might start, the person who is demonically possessed might start talking shit about your mama, about your grandmother, about your ex-husband, about your kids. You have to be able to ignore that. That demon is trying to get a reaction out of you. So don't get violent with them. I know it's hard not to punch them in the face when they're popping shit, but if you do that, you are giving the demons what they want. So don't get violent in return. Don't get condescending. Don't get fresh. Don't have an attitude. Don't get bitchy if that demon possession that human being is getting shitty with you. They're just, what they're really doing is just talking shit. Ignore it. But communication is key in Wicca when dealing with an exorcism, because it is important that the spirit is addressed in some way, especially if no prior connection has been made. Even if there is no medium present, address the spirit in a firm tone of voice and initially respectful tone. You know, don't be disrespectful, even though that demon is probably going to disrespect you at some point. You know, talk shit about you. This step will lead to full exorcism. Now, you can't be afraid when doing an exorcism. You cannot be afraid. Get that out of your system. You cannot be afraid. You know, you have to have some bass in your voice when talking to that demonically possessed person. If you sound weak, the demon may very well just laugh in your face. They'll take you as a joke. And you don't want that, because they'll feed off of that. They'll feed off that energy. Removal. Now this is expelling the demon. How this occurs, how this happens, will depend on the operation and communication. In some cases, it may be a invitation to cross over to the next life, go back to hell, go back to wherever the hell you came from. In others, it is a compulsion and command, like, get the fuck out of here. You know, you can't say that. I'm not saying you have to be patient all the time. Every now and then, because we are human, you might lose your temper and might say, get the fuck out of here. You know, I'm not saying you should step back from being human and just be an exorcist. You have the right to express their emotions, so you might have to actually say in a firm tone to that demonic, the demon, because it's that person, get the fuck out of this person. But you have to have the bass in your voice. You have to have the authority in your voice to do so. You can't sound shy or meek or weak. No, you have to have some bass in your voice. It's a command. It's a command. You're telling it, you don't belong here. Get the fuck out. And you have that right to do that, because they don't belong here anyway. So in either case, the invoking of a deity or particular god or goddess, or even what you might call a higher power, may accompany this. Alternatively, as an alternative, noise plays a part in this, ringing a bell, banging up drums, or just raising your voice, building up that energy to expel the demon from the person. After the demon has been expelled from the person, first of all, let me tell you this. You might have to perform an exorcism on a person several times to be sure that demon is not going to come back. Sometimes one exorcism does not cut it, unfortunately. So you might have to do an exorcism several times to be certain that that demon is gone and won't be coming back. The next thing you do as an exorcist when it comes to Wicca is something called replacement. Once it is clear that the area has been cleared, always seek confirmation that the area has been cleared. You need to replace the removed energy, perform energy raising again, like build up your circle, ring bells, light your incense, light your candles, calling your deities, your gods and your goddesses that you use at the beginning of the exorcism to basically fill the void that was left by the demon. The next step is something called ward, W-A-R-D, ward. You want to establish protective wards around the area to discourage the demon from coming back. You don't want it to come back. So you have to have some type of protection around the area in which you live at to make sure that demon won't come back and won't bring other demons with it. You don't want to get rid of one demon and another demon comes to take its place. So you want to have some type of protection around yourself and around your home to stop all of them from coming back. Now, yes, sometimes a person can be possessed by more than one demon. So you might have to bring in 2 priests or 2 priestesses to expel that demon. But it's not very often that a person is possessed by more than one demon. It's not very often. But it does happen, and that's why I have to tell you that sometimes a person can be possessed by more than one demon. It does happen, unfortunately. Now, 2 demons that you've probably heard of, you probably heard about it in the movies or seen on TV, are called Incubus and Succubus. Those are 2 demons that attack male and females. It doesn't really matter what's between your legs, whatever you identify yourself as, male or female. An incubus spirit, it's not really a spirit, it's a fucking demon. An incubus attacks women while they sleep. And most of the time it happens in dreams. These spirits, these incubus, feed on lust and are very aggressive. The woman might feel like she's being raped. That woman is being attacked. Actually, I would think that it is rape because the woman doesn't want to participate with this incubus. The incubus usually looks like this incredibly handsome man, like the man of their dreams. And when they get a little closer and they get a good look at it, it's a demon. Incubus spirits are known to sit on a woman's chest. So that's why some women wake up in the morning and their chest is hurting them. But it's not actually their hearts or their chest, just their chest hurting them. It's actually because an incubus has been sitting on their chest through the night raping them. Incubus spirit, no, why do I keep saying spirit? Incubus, just say incubus. Incubus usually would cover the woman's mouth so that she can't breathe or cry out for help. It's rape. That's all it is. It's rape. It's rape. It's being raped spiritually. That's exactly what it is. Signs that a incubus is attacking you. You might have scratches on you. You might have bite marks on you. You might have puncture wounds on you. Any type of strain marks on the body, especially in the genitalia, in the private area. You are not able to sleep. You don't want to sleep. You have a bloated abdomen. You look bloated. You might look like you might be pregnant. But of course, demons can't impregnate humans. Okay, let's get that straight. They can't. It doesn't happen. But you might get bloated. You might not be able to sleep. You might have, like I said, scratches, bites, puncture wounds in your body that obviously you did not do yourself. You might not want to have sex with your partner. You might not want to have sex with your husband because you just don't want to be touched, because you're being touched at night by this incubus. The male side of that is called a succubus. That's for the men that's being attacked at night sexually, being raped. A succubus is this beautiful demon, but when you see it up close, it scares the shit out of you. It comes to men at night. It's a seductive female, has the most incredible physical features of a woman, big breasts, big booty, with vagina, all that. A succubus is everything a man wants in a woman. But it's not so when he figures out that he's actually being raped. A succubus seduces men while they sleep or in a subconscious state, but most likely when you're sleeping. The succubus spirit is dangerous, even though some men enjoy being pleasured by it. But you're being raped though. You're spiritually being raped. The signs of a succubus attack is a lot like the females. The men might wake up with scratches, bite marks, puncture wounds that obviously they themselves did not put there. They can't sleep at night. They don't want to sleep at night. They have dreams of a sexual nature. I'm not talking about witch dreams. I'm talking about dreams in which they act out their dream. I'm not just talking about, they masturbate. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they act out their dreams. They might find themselves, it doesn't happen very often, but they might find themselves, if they happen to be married and, their wife is in bed with them, they might act out that dream by that succubus on their wife, and that would be considered marital rape. So they might need the help of a priest or a priestess of whatever faith that they have to get rid of it. Why do, demons possess people? I said this earlier, because of drug abuse. Those hard drugs, that crack, that cocaine, that heroin, those are hard drugs. And they open up the doorway to demonic oppression and possession. You might have low self-esteem. You might not like the way that you look. You might not like your living situation. You might not like the relationship that you're in. You might have people who tease you or who bully you. That will cause you to have low self-esteem. And if you have low self-esteem, you're most likely to be demonically oppressed or possessed. You have depression. Depression in which medicine is not working for you. Now, you may have seen all of these commercials lately about medication to treat depression. And they say, they say things like, do you go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning? I hope that you would wake up in the morning, right? Right? What kind of a question is that? What the hell does that even mean? That's a dumbass question. A lot of people who are depressed are demonically oppressed. It's demonic. It's not medical. There's nothing medical that can help you. There's no medicine that can help you. You need to seek the advice of somebody who is a spiritualist, somebody who has experience with demons that can, expel it from you. You might open the door to demonic oppression or possession if you have really bad anxiety. Now, I know everybody has anxiety every once in a while. Even on your wedding day, you might feel anxiety. Anxiety and nervousness are two different things. Nervousness goes away. Anxiety takes much longer to go away and probably is treated with medication. Sometimes I get nervous when I have to speak in front of a crowd, but I still do it. So that's not anxiety. Anxiety is much longer. The period of anxiety is much longer. I always thought of anxiety as nervousness that takes much longer to get over. It's a fear that takes much longer to get over. But if you happen to have anxiety and your medication is not working, no matter how many times you changed it, you might be demonically oppressed or possessed, and you need the help of somebody spiritual to help you, because the doctors no longer can, or the medication that they have prescribed you is not working. So that's what this broadcast was about. Demonic oppression, demonic possession. I will leave this up for the replay, and I will try to probably upload it onto YouTube so you can watch at your convenience. So thank you for joining me tonight on this broadcast, and I will be speaking to you guys soon. Blessed be. Bye, everybody.